Hello there, welcome to Granada Reports. We're live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello there, on the programme this evening.
The latest on the shooting of 9-year-old Olivia. A man is arrested on suspicion of her murder as tributes continue at the scene.
Winter energy bills will soar. Tonight, how will those already struggling cope?
Gone but not forgotten, how the history of this stately home and its grounds is inspiring a new generation of gardeners.
And in the weather, International Dog Day today, and it looks like beautiful weather for walkies over the weekend. All the details coming up shortly.
All that coming up. But first tonight, detectives investigating the murder of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Korbel have arrested a man. The 36-year-old from Huyton was detained in an operation involving armed officers last night.
The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, visited the scene of the schoolgirl's death in Dovecot earlier, as leading figures from the city's football clubs paid their tributes. Well, Tim Scott is live there for us tonight. Tim.
Yes, Anne, an arrest in this case following a raid by armed officers on an address in Huyton last night. In the last hour, police have released this footage of the raid, which shows officers entering the property on Tarbuck Road. Police say they now have arrested a man on suspicion of the murder of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Korbel, who was shot and killed at her home in Dovecot behind me on Monday night. They've also released a picture of an Audi Q3 car. They believe it was used to ferry the intended victim of the shooting to hospital, and they're keen to speak to anyone who may have seen that car in the days before the shooting. The intended victim of the shooting, 35-year-old Joseph Nee, he's still being treated in hospital. He will be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his licence.
And Tim, the city's two big football clubs have come together to pay tributes today.
Yes, ambassadors from each club, and Ian Rush, ex-players Ian Rush for Liverpool and Ian Snowden for Everton. They both visited the scene here today and they both laid floral wreaths. And Liverpool manager and ex-Liverpool player Steven Gerrard, Aston Villa manager now, they both answered questions about Olivia's killing at their press conferences today.
Horrible. Only to think about it, and it's such a tragedy. Yes, from our point of view, whatever I say would not help really, but if we can help in any kind, we will. That's clear. That must be clear. This is our city.
I'm personally devastated. I've got a 10-year-old daughter myself, so I can't imagine what the family going through right now, and I hope that family gets justice as soon as possible. So I suppose the message I want to give is do the right thing if you know anything.
Yeah, the city still is in shock at this week's events. And Tim, the Home Secretary came to Liverpool today to say there'd be some extra money to try to take weapons off the streets.
Yes, Andy, Priti Patel visited the scene accompanied by Merseyside Chief Constable Serena Kennedy. She's announced she's providing an extra £350,000 for Merseyside Police to help tackle organised crime and take weapons off the streets. And despite the recent spates of shootings on Merseyside, she says Merseyside Police are doing an outstanding job. She's also announced a £150,000 package to help with what she's described as trauma and mental health support for the people of Liverpool and Knowsley.
It's very specific in terms of community support, but will cover a lot of the trauma support for local families, for local residents. We call it trauma-informed approach, but help with the education community, so the local schools, in fact the school that Olivia went to as well. And that'll be £150,000 just as a start for the local community. And it's important that we put that support package in. It's a care package effectively.
Throughout today, flowers and tributes, balloons and cards in support of little Olivia, in memory of little Olivia, have been left here behind me, and that's grown and grown throughout the day. Merseyside still remains in shock over the senseless killing of a 9-year-old little girl, and police are still appealing for information from the public. Andy, Anne.
OK, Tim Scott reporting for us in Dovecot tonight. Thank you.
The dreaded announcement of a hike in the energy price cap has seen businesses warn they face ruin and charities say it will risk the lives of some vulnerable consumers.
The last price cap increase in April put the average energy bill up to £1,971 a year.
This latest rise will push annual bills up to an average of £3,549 from October the 1st.
And there are predictions that figure could increase to at least £5,300 in 3 months' time. Here's our political correspondent, Leisha McNally.
Winter is coming and Amy is worried. She's trying to build an upcycling business, making the best out of old furniture. But she can't make the best out of this, a massive hike in her energy bills.
You wake up in dread every morning. If it's payday, you dread payday because it's not going to be useful this payday. You wait for the next one. You know you're already in the deficit before you've even spent anything because of how expensive everything is looking.
Amy now works as a cleaner to supplement her income. She's sold her possessions and uses a food bank, fearing for thousands of others in the same situation.
I don't think that a lot of people will cope. One of my friends is about to have a baby and she's already, she knows that she'll have to choose to feed the baby over herself if it comes to it because the budget just does not cover everything. For myself, I'll probably turn into a bit of a hermit and stay indoors. Even just a simple bus ride is a stressful decision to make in the modern day. Lives are very likely to be lost if this continues. And that should be more important than anything.
Today's price cap announcement could push millions into fuel poverty as it jumps by more than 80% from October the 1st. Meanwhile, businesses are being served even more uncertainty. They don't have a cap on their energy costs, leaving them at the mercy of wholesale gas markets. This family-run ice cream company in Cheshire installed solar panels to try to bring down their bills, but now worry they'll have no choice but to pass on rising costs to their customers.
When you're talking 3 or 4-fold with electricity prices, we are really nervous to the extent of which the electricity price increase is going to have on us, with the cost of manufacturing, with the cost of our suppliers, and we've already gone through COVID. You've got this on top of it. The government, I believe, need to act fast. This is a matter of urgency.
For whoever ends up in charge down here in Westminster, a huge political headache is headed their way. What should financial support look like? Who should get it? And how do you pay for it? Economists at one independent think tank say people should get help based on their energy need as well as their income.
As we're facing this winter, we're looking at a catastrophe that's facing households. So we're calling for a social tariff. People don't necessarily have control of how much energy their households need. For example, if you're a larger household with more children, you will need more energy. If you are a household that is quite leaky and hasn't been insulated, which a lot of homes haven't, that is also going to have a higher energy cost and isn't something you can necessarily change in the short term.
And with just 10 days left on the job, the Prime Minister's short-term options are also limited. Boris Johnson says more help is coming, but it will have to be targeted.
What I don't think we should be doing is trying to cap the whole thing for absolutely everybody, the richest households in the country. It will be tough, and I've been very clear about that. But in the end, we're also putting in the measures we need to ensure that we have the energy independence to get through this.
But Labour says these bills are burning a hole in all our pockets and that every household will need help.
We need to have a freeze on those energy prices. Do not let them go up to those levels, and pay for that in part by a windfall tax on the oil and gas companies on those excess profits. Meanwhile, you've got a government that is missing in action. And I think most people looking in today would say that is unforgivable.
Freezing prices would cost £60 billion over the next year, almost as much as the furlough scheme. But as North West households prepare for a big freeze of their own, desperate times could call for desperate measures.
Yeah, tough times ahead, I think that's for certain. And Leisha joins us now from Westminster. So Leisha, whether it's Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss in number 10 in the next few weeks, people will be looking to them for action on this, won't they?
That's right. Energy price cap announcements never used to loom quite so large in the political calendar, did they? But then they've never been this dramatic before. And charities are warning it could be a disaster in the making. A household is said to be in fuel poverty if it has to spend more than 10% of its income on energy bills. That could be 2/3 of us by the new year. Now, the government has already announced a support package worth £37 billion, including £400 grants to every household. That was considered quite generous back in May under the old price cap, but things have gotten an awful lot worse since then, and now that money won't even cover half of the average rises that most households can expect. Meanwhile, Westminster stands empty of MPs, and we don't currently have a Prime Minister able to commit to further funding until the Conservative leadership race has run its course. Now, if he wins, Rishi Sunak has offered to cut VAT on energy bills and set aside more money for vulnerable households. Meanwhile, Liz Truss says tax cuts will give working families more flexibility in their monthly budget. But we haven't heard much detail from either camp, and we're unlikely to until one of them holds the keys to number 10. That's still 10 days away. A very anxious wait for many.
Absolutely. OK, Alicia McNally in Westminster, thank you.
More of the day's news, and postal workers in the North West have taken part in the largest strike the UK has seen since 2009. Pickets were staged outside Royal Mail centres in Liverpool, Preston and Manchester. The Communication Workers Union said around 150,000 staff were part of the walkout. Further strikes will take place next week and in September.
A COVID booster vaccination campaign is being launched in the Isle of Man next month. The autumn rollout aims to give greater immunity to those at higher risk from the virus, including those in care homes. It follows a similar campaign recently announced in the UK.
And thousands of people will be attending Manchester's Pride this bank holiday weekend. The event kicks off today and celebrates the city's LGBTQ+ community. There'll be plenty of parties and a parade on Saturday. And you can find details of the event by going to our website. It's itv.com/Granada.
OK, you're watching Granada Report, still to come tonight.
A full sports desk, including United's draw for the group stages of the Europa League.
And Gertie and Phoenix here are feeling very reflective and wondering exactly what the bank holiday weekend weather is going to be like. Well, I'll be back shortly with all the details, so stay with us.
Now, we have already left one home. We don't want to leave another. One asylum seeker's plea after being told he and his family will be forced to relocate in a matter of days.
Rumi, alongside his wife and son, have been living in Home Office accommodation in Manchester for the last 6 months. But just as they're starting to settle and his son has made school friends, they've been told they will now be moved to Lancashire. Emma Sweeney reports.
When the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan last year, thousands fled in fear of their lives. Many, like Rumi, whose identity we're protecting, ended up here in the northwest.
I used to work with the government and I made some reporting against Taliban, and just because of me some of their colleagues were arrested. I had to leave the country and I decided to move to Manchester to UK because my friends are here, some of my cousins are living over here, and one of my brother is also living here. So I thought it would be good to be with the people you know.
Rumi was forced to make the heartbreaking decision to leave 2 of his children with family members back in Afghanistan, while his other son and wife joined him here in the UK. As they await for a decision on their asylum application, they've started to make a new life here in Manchester.
We feel it like our home now. The culture of the Manchester, the people of the money, they're very friendly, they're very welcoming, they're very warm. And my son wanted to be here because he had some cousins here, and now he has settled in his school and he has a friendship group over there.
But just as Rumi and his family are beginning to lay down new roots, they've now been told things are about to change. Serco, the government contractors in charge of their hotel accommodation, say next week they'll be relocated outside of Manchester.
Now I've got a dispersal letter from the Home Office, and when I check the address of the next accommodation, it is somewhere in Lancashire. and we don't want to move there. It can have a very bad effect on the mental and physical health of my son. He's already in an anxiety of a separation from his young brothers. Now he don't want to leave his friends now.
Although relocating asylum seekers is not uncommon, one Manchester-based human rights charity says it is wrong.
They have worked very hard to try and create some sense of safety and security for themselves and their child who is with them here in Manchester, and they really do not need to be disrupted again. This family is very brave to come forward and explain why it's so important for them to stay in the city.
In a statement, a Serco spokesperson said,
"The desire to stay in Manchester was raised with other organisations, and Serco was not made aware of this concern. Given the limited accommodation available in Manchester, there is nothing suitable for them, and so we have offered them alternative housing as near as possible."
A Home Office spokesperson added,
"We are proud that this country has provided homes for nearly 7,400 Afghan evacuees, but there is a shortage of local housing accommodation for all. We will continue to bring down the number of people in bridging hotels, moving people into more sustainable accommodation as quickly as possible."
With just days to go, Room is hoping the Home Office and Serco will reverse their decision and allow them to stay in the place they now call home. Emma Sweeney, ITV News, Manchester.
And here's Chris Shipp with details of the ITV News coming next.
Coming up, we'll have more on what the energy cap price rise means for you and what is the government actually doing about it. The Prime Minister said today more help is coming. Police arrest a man on suspicion of killing 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Korbel. Why Liz Truss has sparked a diplomatic row with the French. And Britney's back with her first single in 6 years. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Thank you, Chris. Now we're going to give you a bit of a history lesson.
If you visited the RHS Garden Bridgewater in Salford, how much do you know of its past?
Well, it was the site of a grand stately home which was demolished almost 80 years ago.
But in the last of her special reports, our correspondent Mel Barham has been delving back into the past and finding out how the site's history is actually inspiring the future plans for the garden.
It's almost like creeping up on the ghosts of what was here once. It was once such a vibrant place, with magnificent parties, and it's wonderful to have brought that back to life.
This garden has lots of key components from the past that are important. Those elements give it a foot in the past that you can then paint a new picture on.
RHS Bridgewater in Salford is a modern garden. It only opened last year, but its past is rich in history. Bridgewater was built on the site of the former Worsley New Hall.
Worsley New Hall was built by the first Earl of Ellesmere. It was completed in 1846 and designed by leading architect at the time, Edward Bloor. And it was a magnificent Victorian Gothic mansion, had wonderful views. It was on an elevated south-facing slope.
From the public gardens of Bridgewater, the site of the old hall is hidden, but take to the air and its secrets are unlocked. The house may not be here anymore, but look closely and its footprint is still visible.
So we think this would have been the front elevation of the hall, and then you would have come down the steps onto the top terrace with views to the lake and to the surrounding countryside. In its heyday, you would have had a series of formal terraces going down to the lake at the bottom, and they were planted in a very formal style. They're called parterre de broderie. And there were also, at one side, there would have been croquet lawns and tennis courts, and then further away from the hall there was sort of a pleasure grounds. During the First World War, it was given over to the Red Cross to become a hospital for wounded officers. And sadly, the Ellesmere family never returned to the hall after that. They had the usual problems that these great stately homes experienced at that time. There were fewer servants around, death duties to pay, that kind of thing. So the family never returned, and there then began a sad decline. And there was a fire in 1943 and suffered dry rot, and eventually it became so unstable that it had to be demolished. Eventually the hall was sold to the newly formed Bridgewater Estates for £3.3 million, and it was believed that that was the largest cheque ever written at that time.
In the more recent past, this site was used by the Scouts. It was also home to this Cold War bunker, which some locals may remember as the site of illegal raves. Today, this part of the plot is still inaccessible to the general public, but the RHS have now started hidden walking tours. Janice is one of the volunteer guides.
It's great now to bring people up to here, to where it was once such a vibrant place. There were magnificent parties, and it was just a really important part of the local area. And it's wonderful to just be able to sort of bring this part back to life as well.
But nostalgia for the past is providing inspiration for the future. The hall may be long gone, but there are big ambitions for this part of the site, including a glass house, a new school of horticulture, and a reimagining of the historic hall's terraces.
There are certain elements that will definitely stay and be there and be celebrated. So the terraces themselves will be opened up, but it won't be a restoration. So we'll use the frame, but all the stuff going on it will be a lot freer.
For designers here, it's been all about building on the heritage of the past to create a garden of the future. But those aren't the only plans afoot here, because work's already begun on the new Chinese garden at Bridgewater, a unique collaboration with designers in China.
The Chinese garden is probably one of the most exciting initiatives that we're running through at the moment on site. It's a long-term vision for about 7 acres of the garden.
It's thought this will be one of the UK's first ever genuine Chinese classical gardens.
A lot of historic ethnic gardens tend to be British interpretations of what those places are like, whereas this is quite different in that the heart of the garden is designed by Chinese people.
It is all a work in progress, but one that promises to breathe new life into a land previously lost to the past. Mel Barham, ITV News, Salford.
Beautiful. Now let's see if we get any sun to go there. The weather forecast for the bank holiday weekend with Emma.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. You know what's coming. Bank holidays around the corner, and it's International Dog Day today. Of course it is, as if we don't show enough photos of dogs already, but certainly put a smile on all of our faces there. And it looks like being good weather for walkies this bank holiday weekend. Today, quite a bit of cloud around first thing, but that broke to some beautiful blue skies this afternoon, and things continue fine and mostly settled for the rest of the long weekend. Just 1 or 2 showers in the mix, but some very usable weather on offer. Now, we just have to keep an eye on this collection of fronts out to the west there that made a skim past the region on Saturday, mostly affecting the Isle of Man with some cloud and a few showers as well. Then the high pressure really builds in as it pushes further northward. Sunday into Monday we develop more of an easterly breeze, but shouldn't affect us too much here in the northwest. As we head into the rest of this evening, 1 or 2 showers do continue. They'll be fairly isolated as the night continues. 1 or 2 isolated mist and fog patches as well under clearer slots forming, and temperatures not falling too far, 13 to 15 Celsius at lowest, with light winds, maybe a bit breezy across the Isle of Man this evening, but then those winds do ease as we head through the early hours of the morning. Sun's up tomorrow at 6:10, sets at 8:14. And we're expecting the showers to continue for a little while. There's going to be a lot more sunshine tomorrow than there was today, and a scattering of showers, a smattering down the Pennine spine of the country, working their way up towards Kendal and also up towards Cumbria as well. Top temperatures 22, 72 Fahrenheit with light winds. Then for Sunday, well, actually a very pleasant day, especially in Lytham for the unveiling of Bobby Ball's statue. 24, that's 75. And fine on Monday, a slight shower risk on Sunday. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thanks, Emma. So, yes, some good weather for the bank holiday. And there's so much going on this weekend, including Bolton Food and Drink Festival, Creamfields, International Beetle Week and Manchester Pride as well. Do enjoy yourself if you're out and about.
Yes, do. Our next bulletin is after news at 10 tonight. For now, though, thanks very much for watching.
Good night.